This is Nishanth Reghunath here, welcoming you to the third part of my study in Chapter 6A Deductions under Section 80C to 80U. And in this part, we'll be dealing with the set of deductions from 80D to 80EE. And again, they are deductions which are in respect of certain payments which fall under this grouping of 80C to 80GGC. So let's check out a summary, a quick snapshot of the deductions that we are going to learn in this video, that is deductions from 80D to 80EE. So the first grouping I've made is from 80D to 80EEB. And all the deductions, these three deductions are related to medical expenditure, health insurance premium, treatment, contribution to CGHS, preventive health checkup, etc. So everything related to medical expenditure is from D to DDB. So there's a quick summary given here, there's a maximum deduction and the eligible assessee given here. So I suggest you guys to take note of this. And for deductions 80E and 80EE, they are concerned with repayment of interest on loans. 80E is regarding higher education loan and 80EE is regarding housing loan. So keep this in mind. Every deduction which goes from 80C to 80CCE, that is everything which has C in it as the first alphabet, is regarding certain payments and investments a person makes to make his future financial position stable. Certain investments and payments. Alright. Every deduction which has the first letter as D is regarding certain payments which a person makes for ensuring his health, alright, ensuring proper health of him and his family. So medical insurance premium, treatment, expenses, etc. falls for D. And every deduction which has the first letter as E is for interest repayments. Alright, now that's it for a quick summary. I hope you guys took a note of all these things that I have shown over here. Now let's move on to our first deduction, that is 80D. So 80D, health insurance, CGHS, preventive health checkup and medical expenses for resident senior citizen. So RSC right here stands for resident senior citizen and CGHS stands for Central Government Health Scheme. And it is a scheme started by the central government to which individual assessees can contribute money in order to ensure safe health, good health of themselves and their family, like taking a medical insurance. Alright, very similar to taking a medical insurance. So let's see how this 80D works. So first of all, 80D is applicable for both individuals and HUFs. Alright, both individual assessees and HUF assessees can claim this deduction. So for individuals, the claim can be made for two categories of people. One is for his family and two is for his parents. For HUF, the deductions can be made for all of their members. So the definition as per the Act for family and parents is very crucial here. What the Act means by family is the individual himself or herself, the spouse and their children if they are dependent. And parents, it doesn't matter whether they are dependent or not. So family means the individual plus the spouse and plus dependent children. So here children needs to be dependent. But for parents, it's irrelevant whether they are dependent or not. If you remember correctly, when we learned 80C, we saw that 80C deduction is available for life insurance premium for an individual if the insurance is taken for the individual, spouse or children regardless of their dependency. Right, but in 80D, children has to be dependent. So relate this D with that dependency. Alright, but for parents, no dependency at all. It doesn't matter. I hope that's clear. Now let's see how or what all items of deduction we can take for each of these categories. Alright, so first of all, for family, let's see what's available. So for the family, that's for the spouse, self and the children, dependent children. An assessee can take deduction for health insurance premium, contribution to CGHS or any other notified health schemes, preventive health checkup. HCU stands for health checkup, but it's limited to rupees 5,000 maximum, and medical expenses for a resident senior citizen. So health insurance premium, the star means it has to be paid in any mode other than cash. So not paid in cash. And medical expense for RSC means medical expense for RSE, there is a condition along with it. The thing is, one is it has to be paid in any other mode other than cash, and the second condition hashtag is that that person, that resident senior citizen does not have any health insurance and no health insurance premium is paid on behalf of that person. So if there is a resident senior citizen and no health insurance premium is paid in regards of that person, the medical expense can be taken as deduction. Alright. Now let's see what are the items of deduction for the category of parents. So for individuals, they get this plus this. So for parents, everything except contribution to CGHS or notified HS. Alright. So health insurance premium, preventive health checkup subjected to 5,000 maximum, and medical expense for a resident senior citizen. Alright. Clear? Now for HUF, let's see what all are available. Health insurance premium and medical expense for resident senior citizen. Nothing else. Fine. So if you observe a pattern over here, the individual's family gets the most. Take away contribution to CGHS and notified health scheme, that's what the parents have. Now take away preventive health checkup from parents, and that's what HUF has. Alright. So for an individual, he or she can take deduction in the name of his or her family and an addition for his or her parents. Now let's see what's the quantum amount of deduction allowable. So the quantum deduction allowable here are 25,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees. Now this 25,000 rupees is for general category. But then if any person in this family, in this category of family, is a senior citizen, that deduction gets increased to rupees 50,000. Alright. Pretty clear? Now, besides this, along with this, an individual can take the exact same deduction for the category of his parents, his or her parents. Clear? So, a 25,000 or 50,000, whatever it is for the family category, plus a 25,000 or 50,000, whatever it is for the parents category. So, total, an individual can take a maximum of 50 plus 50, 1 lakh. Clear? So the difference between 25,000 and 50,000 is that if any person in the category, in the said category, the category is what's shown in pink color. Any person in the said category crosses 60 years of age, the deduction of 25,000 gets doubled to 50,000. Alright. So there are two things to be satisfied. Make sure preventive health checkup doesn't cross 5,000 for this category. And with that checked, make sure the total deduction doesn't cross this. Same over here. It's the exact same for HUF as well, 25,000 or 50,000, depending upon the age of the people covered. Alright, so the 2 stars stands for this, if any one person is a resident senior citizen. So any one person in this category of family. Alright, now that's it about 80D. Now what I want you to do is, in your books, this categorization might be given in different methods. It might be given in a tabulature form or in a diagram or like descriptive manner. But always remember this categorization and how the quantums are calculated. Quantums are calculated inclusive of all the items for a certain category. Because in your books you might find at first they'll explain family, health insurance premium and contribution is allowed. And after then parents, health insurance allowed. Members, health insurance allowed. After that they will mention preventive health checkup, preventive health checkup, preventive health checkup, and at all preventive health checkup they'll say 5,000 max is what's available. But what you need to know is this 5,000 maximum is for a category. This 5,000 restriction is for a certain category, single category alone. So together for family and parents, a person can take a total deduction of 5,000 each for each category. Understood? So that's how it works. Because students often get confused, because students will take family and parents and restrict the total preventive health checkup deduction to 5,000. That's not how it works. Alright, fine. Now that's it with 80D. Let's move on to the next one, that is 80DD, disability of a dependent relative. Now an easy way to memorize this section is by expanding DD to disabled dependent. So this deduction is regarding a certain kind of state of being of a dependent. Alright, so this deduction is something that falls under my categorization, not the institutes or acts categorization, my categorization of certain state of being. I taught you in first video, right? Deductions are available for certain payments, certain incomes and certain state of being. So this is for a certain state of being, a disabled state of being for a dependent. Alright, for whom the individual incurs certain payments. Now let's see what this deduction tells us. So eligible assessee, resident individual, resident HUF. So it's 100% required that the assessee has to be a resident and the assessee has a relative who has a disability or a severe disability. Alright. Now assessee incurs medical expenditure for the purpose of treatment, nursing, training, rehabilitation of that dependent relative. But then regardless of the expenditure, the Act provides a fixed deduction, and that deduction is based on whether the relative is disabled or severely disabled. Now, if the relative is just disabled, the assessee can take a deduction of 75,000. If the relative is severely disabled, he or she can take a deduction of 1,25,000. Now comes the question, who is a relative and who is a member and what kind of dependency is required. So relative is spouse, children, parents, brothers or sisters. For HEF, it's any members. And by dependency, it means wholly or mainly dependent. Clear? So that's what the Act tells us what a relative means for this section. And what is a disability and severe disability? Let's check that out. Disability is a specified disability of 40% or more, whereas severe disability is a specified disability which has incurred more than 80% disability on the assessee's relative's health. Now this disability, this measurement of 40% or 80% will have to be certified by a medical authority. Clear? So if the assessee has a relative who is disabled or severely disabled and it is certified by a medical authority, the assessee who is a resident individual or resident HEF can take a deduction of 75,000 or 1,25,000 as the case may be. Now that is 80DD, disabled dependent. Let's go to the last one for medical expenses, and that is specified disease treatment expenditure falling under 80DDB. Now if you remember correctly, we came across this section 80DDB while we were learning about ATC. In ATC, when we were learning about life insurance premium and discussing about the ceiling limits based on the policy date, the last category said about policies taken after 1/4/2013 for people who have specified diseases as per 80DDB, and they will get a ceiling limit of 15% of sum assured. Now this is that 80DDB which we were discussing in ATC. Now let's see what this section is and what it tells us. Eligible assessee, again resident individual or resident HUF. Clear? The assessee or a dependent relative has a specified disease. And by relative, what it means is the exact same definition of relative that we learned in section 80DD. Now let's see what's the deduction that's available. The deduction here available is the actual amount incurred by the assessee restricted to a ceiling limit based on the age of the party. So the actual medical expenditure, but then it's restricted to a ceiling limit based on the age of the party for whom it's expended. And based on the age, the restrictions are as follows. For general category, it's rupees 40,000, and for resident senior citizens, the ceiling limit is rupees 1 lakh. Fine. So if an assessee or a relative has a specified disease, the assessee can take a deduction amounting to the actual amount of medical expenditure, but it's restricted to a ceiling limit based on the age of the party. So here, as I said previously, relative means the exact same thing as we saw in the previous section, and by specified disease, what it means is a set of diseases shown in this table like cancer, AIDS, renal failure, hemophilia, thalassemia, neurological diseases with 40% disability or more. Now that's it for 80DDB. With that, we have finished the 3 sections concerned with medical expenditure. So let me give you a quick summary of it all. Let me take the first table. Yeah. So 80D, health insurance premium, preventive health checkup, contribution to CGHS, SGHS or notified health schemes, and medical expenditure for resident senior citizen. And deduction is available for individual and HF. Residency is not a matter. And deduction will be a maximum of 25,000 or 50,000 based on the age of the parties. And for individual, the class of parties are family and parents. Family are self, spouse and dependent children. And the parents, dependent or not, it's regardless. So that's the deduction available. 80DD is for a disabled dependent, and for a disabled dependent you get a fixed deduction of 75,000 or 1,25,000 based on the severity of the disability. And the same thing for self is available in 80U. So a very similar section to 80DD we'll be learning afterwards in 80U. And 80DDB is for specified disease treatment, and the actual amount of expenditure can be taken as deduction subject to a ceiling limit of 40,000 or 1 lakh based on the age of the people. Now that's it about ATD to DDB. Let's move on to ATE and ATEE. So ATE, as I previously said, it's regarding interest repayment for loans taken on higher education. So there are certain conditions for this section and let's look what they are. First and foremost, who's the eligible assessee? So eligible assessee here is an individual regardless of his residence. Alright, now let's check the conditions. First condition, loan should be taken from a bank or a notified financial institution or an approved charitable institution. Alright, so the loan should be from a bank, notified financial institution or an approved charitable institution, and that loan should be for the purpose of higher education. And by higher education, what it means is education after senior secondary. Clear? Okay, let's see what the third condition is. Okay, the student can be the assessee himself or herself, the spouse, the children, or any child for whom the assessee is a legal guardian. So it can be a loan taken for the studies of the assessee, the spouse, or his or her children, or any child for whom he or she is a legal guardian. Clear? Next point. Deduction is available only for the interest actually paid. Now this is to be highlighted. Deduction is only available if interest is actually paid. You'll understand why I have highlighted this once we proceed with the next section. Alright. So unless and until the deduction is paid, the interest is paid, this deduction won't be available and it should be paid in the previous year. Condition number 5, and this I think is a final condition. It says that the deduction is available in the initial assessment year, that is the year in which the first time deduction is taken in respect of the interest paid, and from that first year in which this deduction is taken up to the next 7 years. So for the first year and the immediately succeeding 7 assessment years, or till the interest is paid in full, whichever is earlier. So if a case where the interest is not paid after the 7 immediately succeeding years, no more deduction will be available for any payment whatsoever which happens after the 7th additional year. Clear? Fine. So that's it about ATE, interest repayment on higher education loan. It is available for any assessee who is an individual regardless of his or her residency. And the conditions are such that the loan should be taken from a bank, notified financial institution or approved charitable institution for the purpose of higher education, that is education that falls after senior secondary, and the student can be the assessee himself or herself, the spouse, the children, or any child for whom he is a legal guardian. There is nothing mentioned as to the dependency of the children. And next, deduction is only available if the loan interest has been paid and the payment is allowed as deduction for the initial year and the 7 immediately succeeding assessment years, or till the year in which the interest is paid in full, whichever is earlier. Fine. That is ATE. Now moving on to the final section under part 3 of our study, and that is ATEE, interest repayment for residential house property. So let's check at the conditions, and before the conditions, first and foremost, the eligible assessee here is an individual regardless of the residency. Clear? Now let's check the conditions. Condition number 1. Loan has to be taken from a financial institution or a housing finance company. That's the first condition. And this loan should be taken in the previous year. That is, the loan should be sanctioned in the previous year, 2016-17. That is from 1/4/2016 to 31/3/2017. In that period, the loan should have been sanctioned by the financial institution or the housing finance company. So those are the first 2 conditions. Moving to condition number 3, that is on the date of the sanctioning of the loan, the assessee should not own any residential house property. Repeating, that is on the date on which the loan is sanctioned, the assessee should not own any residential house property. That is, he should not be having any residential house property on his name or her name as on the date on which the loan is sanctioned. That is the third condition. Fourth condition and fifth conditions are based on 2 amounts, and the fourth condition is based on the amount of the loan, and the amount of loan should not exceed rupees 35 lakhs. That's the fourth condition. loan amount does not exceed rupees 35 lakhs, and if the fifth condition is regarding the value of the house property and it should not exceed 50 lakhs. So two conditions on value. Clear? Now, if all these conditions are satisfied, all these above mentioned 5 conditions are satisfied, a deduction is available for the interest payable. Previously it was for interest actually paid, but here is for interest payable. And that deduction will be restricted to a total amount of rupees 50,000. Whereas for ATE there was no restriction. Absolutely no restriction. But for ATEE, there is a restriction, and that's rupees 50,000. The difference, another difference between the two is ATE interest has to be actually paid in the previous year, whereas ATEE interest just has to be payable. Clear? And one key thing to note here is that we learned in house property that under section 24, the assessee can take a deduction for interest on house property, right? Now, wouldn't it account for double deduction if the assessee takes the deduction at section 24 and at section ATEE? So that's the point. It's regarding that the next point is. So let's check what next point is. It is a note that says double deduction is not available. So what the assessee has to do is, first he or she has to claim the deduction under section 24 for self-occupied property, because for let-out property the deduction is unlimited, but for self-occupied property based on the conditions there is a limitation, right? There is a restriction. So for a self-occupied property, the assessee has to ensure that the deduction is first taken under section 24, and after that if any balance remains, he or she can take the deduction under section ATEE subjected to the restriction here, that is 50,000. Now that's all about section ATEE. Let me give you a quick summary of what we just learned. ATE was for interest on higher education loan taken from a bank, financial institution or notified charitable institution for the purpose of higher education, which falls after higher secondary, and it has no limit. Student can be the assessee, the spouse, the children, or a person for whom the assessee is legal guardian, right? And that interest has to be actually paid in the previous year, and only which paid the deduction is available. Deduction is available in the initial assessment year and the 7 immediately succeeding assessment year, or till the year in which the interest is fully paid, whichever falls earlier. So after 7 additional assessment years, no deduction is available even if the assessee is paying interest, and no limit. ATEE is for interest on housing loan, and there are a few conditions. First condition being the loan is taken from a banking company, financial institution, or a house financing company, house finance corporation. Second being loan was taken in the previous year 16-17. Third condition being the assessee does not own any residential house property as on the date of loan sanction. Fourth and fifth condition regarding certain values. The fourth one being for the value of the loan not exceeding rupees 35 lakhs. Fifth condition being value of the house property not exceeding 50 lakhs. And if all the above conditions mentioned are satisfied, the assessee can take a deduction of rupees 50,000. Assessee can take a deduction of the actual amount of interest payable restricted to an amount of 50,000. Then comes the provision for double deduction. So for a self-occupied property, the assessee first has to claim the deduction under section 24, and beyond that, if there is any excess, the assessee can claim it here under ATEE restricted to 50,000. So that's it about section ATE and EE. So once again, giving you a quick shortcut key to remember. Every deduction which starts with C is for certain investments or payments the assessee makes for ensuring the financial stability for his future safe. For every deduction that starts with D is for every payment that assessee makes for ensuring good health of himself or herself, his family and parents. And finally, every deduction which starts with E is for interest repayment for two kinds of loans. First one being education loan for higher studies, and the second one being house property loan. So that's it about this third part of study. Let's deal with the rest of the deductions in the coming parts. So see you in that video. Till then, take care, stay safe and prepare well for your exams. Bye.